Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. My name is Richard Miller. I'm one of the hosts, and my co-host, well, he walks into the party like he's walking onto a yacht. His hat strategically dipped below one eye. His scarf, it was half and half. He had one eye in the mirror as he watched himself gavotte, and all the girls dreamed that they'd be Luke's partner. They'd be Luke's partner. It's not vain, because this version is actually about Luke. Dr. Luke Leddell, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Rich. Thank you for such a warm and flattering introduction. How are you today?
I'm all right. I checked the lyrics just, to make sure that everything was as it should be. I've left in the mention of a gavotte there. I didn't know what that was. I thought it was maybe a wrong lyric, but it's a kind of Ponzi dancing from like the Middle Ages. I will include a YouTube link to some top-notch gavotting in the show notes for anybody that's interested. Yeah, I mean, outside of the main subject of this podcast, life seems to be pretty good. Everything Sheffield Wednesday related is an ongoing kind of. It's a fire on in the tip, isn't it? It's pretty dreadful. It's pretty dreadful stuff.
Yeah, I kind of liking it to where we are with February right now. It's a real slog, the winter months. Like January feels like it brings some kind of new, fresh promise to its coldness, and then February just feels like no, not this again. Seriously.
Yeah. So I did wonder, because we are in the UK. We're battling with Storm Dennis, and it was pretty horrible getting to and from the ground today. It was pretty awful weather all the way through the game, and I didn't know whether things were better on those sunny climbs and gorgeous beaches in Alberta, Calgary. But it doesn't seem to be that case. It's Calgary is suffering a pretty crummy February as well.
No, I think it's not too bad here, I'll be honest. But it's just you get a few days where it's just a bit cold. Like it becomes varying different shades of cold. Let's be honest here. It's not quite as bad as I don't think I mentioned. We had a week in January where with the wind chill for about 8-9 solid days it was minus 40, and it was just miserable.
Oh,
that was just
too cold. Too cold.
Intensely bitter and cold. So it hasn't been that bad. It's just there's not quite. I think I get a little bit sick of the snow. There's just so much of it. Basically, it's just a big, deluge of snow, and who knows when it's going to stop? Really?
Yeah. Well, I was wondering with sort of these storm names. So that's a new occurrence since you left the UK, that we now give every sort of major chunk of weather its own name.
Well, and this is the really funny things. I don't pay much attention to kind of current affairs, and especially how that kind of feeds into this weird personalization of storms. Wasn't there another storm with a beginning with a C that's still having its like this? Dennis has come pretty quick after the
Storm
C
Kiara was the last one.
Storm Kiara, yes,
or Kira. Pretty hot on the heels is Dennis. But I sort of wondered how so the naming is back and forth between the sexes and alphabetical. But within that, I don't know how the actual names get picked. It would be pretty embarrassing to die as a result of Storm Dennis. You wouldn't want that on your gravestone. It doesn't sound like a valiant way to go, does it?
I was just wondering if they could just start naming after R&B singers. I think that'd be quite nice. I think it just that's a nice little feel to it, really.
So to follow up Kiara, who would you go for? As we've got we could have Emmett. Really
I'd like. Well, maybe I'm moving this a little bit, but Derulo after Jason Derulo, possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we could expand to rappers and have Eazy-E for the as well.
With Derulo, it's not so much the Wind Whispers Mary, it's the Wind Whispers Jason Derulo.
I think so. I think that would be a nice little kind of, I don't know. when people's homes and lives are being torn asunder by a storm, I think, it just adds a nice little cheeky dash of salt to the proceedings.
See, now, just looking at one of the news stories, Army called in as Storm Dennis batters the UK, and now it sort of just makes Dennis sound like just a bit of a wife beater or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just he's come home from the pub, he's angry, he's looking for vengeance wherever he can find it. Right. Anyway, as we're talking news, what a delightful, maybe even professional segue into. Breaking hoo-hoos. And I believe you've got something, Luke, hot off the press.
Exactly. It's real fresh and steaming hot off the press as well. So news from the week is our Serve United Oinks broke into beloved S6 and took a dump on the centre circle. I think they got confused because, me and you said we were excited for the debut of Trumpy Bum on the home soil of Hillsborough. Even though it's a confusion I understand, I didn't think that they would follow through on that one. And also, I wondered as well, coming to this game, I wondered about the pitch, the kit, the pitchman and what they would do, and maybe they shouldn't clean up as the most movement we've seen on the pitch this season.
Excellent.
To sum up, though, I think the joke is on them because we've seen enough shit on this pitch this season anyway.
Just a spade at the end there. Yeah. This is the sort of awful little video going around on Twitter of some filthy, dirty piggies doing.
I didn't even know there was. I think I saw there was. Did they? I've often wondered, did they wipe afterwards?
Oh.
Did they do a little? I
didn't see any paper.
Did they do a little kind of bum skid along the along this? Did they say gracias after that one? I didn't even know there was some video and some media going around until I think it was me and you. We were tagged as part of our Friday night stint, delicious Friday night stint on Love Sport Radio, where we try and tell them that we love sports in our own creative ways. Me, you, and Dan Fudge from the Wednesday week. For some reason, I wasn't on last night for some reason I don't understand. But anyway, and we were tagged on that. Someone basically replied, and basically I didn't see that there was some kind of mobile phone shot video of said Oiks living at large up in Hillsborough when they managed to break in.
And so on to slightly more pleasant, but not that much more pleasant news. We had the midweek match with Luton, so part of our double jaunt away from Hillsborough. So how much of the match were you able to follow on Wednesday night away at Luton?
I actually kind of went back and watched this because I thought with looking at the lineup, it was really just like we absolutely just lost our brains. And kind of real callback to the classic Jos Lukai away match at Millwall, where Ross Wallace played the part of a false nine. What is it by sometimes going to London on these big midweek trips to the Big Smoke that lets us absolutely lose our marbles in terms of tactics? Looking at a situation with playing a 3-5-2, playing three centre-backs, something I don't think I'm very keen on. We never seem to have the personnel to make wingbacks work, but I certainly don't want to see Fernando Forestieri as a left wingback. I think that's pretty madness, pretty maddening, let's be honest.
Yeah, the news broke a little bit ahead of the team news coming out, didn't it? It was Dom Howson sort of said, I'm hearing word. So I can only presume somebody within the Wednesday camp was either so flabbergasted or so excited at the brilliant ruse they'd come up with that they couldn't wait to tell one of the local journos about the fact that we were going to be playing three at the back with Fernando Forestieri deployed at left wing back. It's a formation and a team that just looked like it had been pulled out of nowhere. And then watching the team play, it looked like nobody knew what they were supposed to be doing. Shown, pretty brilliantly, a microcosm of how much of a car crash this was. Within 15 seconds, we had conceded a penalty. And when you watch the bit back, it is genuinely like the start of a game of FIFA, in the old days when the players took a little while to sort of turn on at the start of the match. Because they just ran straight through the gaping chasm between Tom Lees and Dominic Iorfa, and then were clipped over. Thankfully, they didn't score it, so we still had we had some more time to find our feet. But it was a horror show, really.
Mm-hmm. And I really want to say that, I've made the allusion to Sheffield United at the beginning of this podcast. I don't really want to talk a great deal about them any further. But maybe they should also, in kind of, maybe they should look across the city to see some real trailblazers. I mean, they have overlapping centre-backs. We have overcacking centre-backs. Centre-backs who seem to kind of outdo each other in how shit they are, basically. So I'm really worried with I don't want to see Lees anywhere near a centre-back space unless we're rocking an injury right now. I didn't really understand that kind of mentality. Saying that, I mean, it's going into the game, and when I kind of turned off all media and, put the game on. So I didn't really have any great expectation, didn't have the kind of outer influence. I thought from looking at the lineup, I thought it might just be crazy enough just to work. And the funny thing I want to say was that actually some of the fluidity going forward, I thought was quite good in the first half.
There were bits, yeah.
And I mean, Kieran Lee looked like he got around, the kind of midfield quite a bit. We seemed a lot more dynamic, I would say, than I think I've seen in a while. But still, that overarching issue is it's both ends of the pitch. The first third defensively were not very good. We've lost any kind of great nows and kind of composition at the back.
Yeah.
Which is worrying, and we don't have any composition up front. We're not looking to. That was the thing that hurt so much, is that we went to go attacking against a club who, really in the doldrums and really doing incredibly poor in this championship season in Luton Town, and we couldn't even, it's that analogy, the boxing analogy, didn't lay a glove on him.
Yeah,
we didn't do that. We're not, and I don't know. This is the thing that kind of worries me, is I wonder with, what is Monk seeing on the training ground? Are the players doing that? I mean, that's the thing. I remember, so my dad worked for the Sheffield Star and did some reporting on some Wednesday games in the late 70s, early 80s, and did a number of things at the newspaper. And I think once he was interviewing someone like Laurie Madden in the early kind of 80s Wednesday side, and basically made a comment about how I think my dad might have seen him in training or something like this and seen that he'd scored a couple. And then, Laurie Madden said something on the transit, yeah, but everybody scores in training. And I don't know, is Monk seeing stuff that looks promising, on the training ground, so that makes me think that that's not an issue and that's something that will replicate every game? What is, I don't understand any kind of attack. I don't understand any game plan, but an attacking game plan is a big one, because we haven't scored, this whole patch of, 5 from 27 or however many points it is now.
Desperate, isn't it? Since Christmas, really, it's been
poor. There's only has there been 3 goals we've scored in the league, basically? I think that's it, really.
Not brother, because obviously I'm always conscious that people will know and be shouting. So 26th, we did score twice against Stoke. That was sort of one of the those matches where we capitulated.
Yes, we did.
Last dying moments. So we last scored a goal at home against Cardiff.
Yes, that's someone has said 29th of December. I think I've seen that. This year,
put around. Or if you're prone to hyperbole, this decade we have not scored a a league goal at Hillsborough. So then it was a 1-0 loss to Hull, 1-0. Then we won 2. We beat Brighton, beat Leeds. 5-0 to Blackburn. We beat QPR 2-1, but that again, Cup. Lost 2-1 to Wigan. Drew 1-1. Drew 0-0 with Millwall. Drew 1-1 with Barnsley. Lost 1-0 to Luton, and then that leads us up to today's game. But
it's just I kind of bring this up because I mean, we're here and we're doing this podcast. It's something that we thought would be fun to do for our own personal reasons. We enjoy the medium of podcast. I think, like a lot of people, we got we had some really nice words from people. So thank you to all our listeners who've given us feedback on different mediums. But I know one person said, one person who commented recently on Alsoc said, I love it. I love all Wednesday content. I can't get enough of it. And I know what it's like to just be there with seemingly like a bright-eyed kind of American child on a commercial for a cereal, and it's a Wednesday cereal, and I'm just filling my bowl. I'm having like 5 or 6. I'm just getting my year's worth of sugar in one day. I know what it's like to be there and just be like, just get it into my veins. Just get this Wednesday content into me. So I get it, but it's just, I don't know. I think I've often thought about like the fact that we're primarily doing this is because it should be entertaining.
Yeah.
But it's just been so far from entertainment right now.
I think again, it probably leads in a little bit to today's game. But we're entering the bit of being a fan of a football club that is my least favourite. I get very frustrated at this. I'm starting to get that. I'm by no means calling for Monk's head, okay? But I'm starting to reach that point mentally where, we have had more bad games and more wild swings that didn't work than we've had successes. And it's getting harder to see the bright bit where it turns round. And I'm getting less convinced that we're going to have that bright moment. Today was as good a day as any to turn a corner. And we did the opposite of turning a corner. We barreled straight into, whatever safety devices were there to stop people driving straight over the corner. We bounced over them at a canter, and buried ourselves in the wall on the other side. It's just so Barnsley was just bizarre in terms of, as you say, just throwing attackers at it. And not only so in some ways you'd go, if that game had finished 3-3 or something like that, you'd kind of go, oh, well, we kind of let too much go on at the back, but at least we're doing stuff going forward. And Luton again, if this was a back and knockabout kind of game where you lose by the odd goal out 5 or 6, that's one thing. But we're not laying a glove. We're putting all these, we're sacrificing shape, tactics, any modicum of defending, any semblance of a game plan to throw attackers at the situation. And it's not working. We're not looking dangerous or exciting. We just look terrible at the back and therefore frightened to do anything. So we're now on 3 successive games where we've kind of been in that mold. But you're right. I mean, at moments when we had the ball and we had the lion's share of possession, we had almost 60% of the ball against Luton. At times, things were moving around quite nicely and freely. Forestieri did not stay in that left fullback berth or left wing back berth. He was charging around, doing his busy thing, but very little to show for it. And every single time they came forward, your heart was in your mouth because it just felt like they could put a ball over the top or play string 2. If they could string 2 passes together at any moment going forward, we were completely out of the game and just waiting for them to score. I mean, they had the penalty. They had another 2 or 3 gilt-edged chances. I can't remember. Was it Brown missed an absolute gaping sitter where Lee's let Collins sort of pull off his shoulder and chest it down under no challenge whatsoever to the middle of our penalty area, where Iorfa was about 10 feet behind where he should have, behind his man. And Brown somehow contrived to miss when literally everybody was just kind of... I think Dawson was doing that bit of goalkeeping where you close your eyes and look the other way and hope that it sort of maybe bounces off your face, luckily. So it just... It was a horror show, really, really, really was. The the goal was conceded through defensive mistakes again. Iorfa got caught in possession, trying to overdo things, and they were able to sort of walk around an overcommitted Dawson and effectively kind of play the ball into an open net as a result. Iorfa takes a lot of the blame. He should know that sometimes he needs to clear the ball. Again, that's something that will come up in this game. But he was also put under terrible strain by Berner with a really shoddy, hospital ball back pass to him. It's tricky because wherever you look all over the pitch, I think maybe should we start talking about today's game?
Sure. I guess just to kind of conclude, Luton, didn't look like scoring, even though we had this weird kind of formation. And yet, bizarrely, we only conceded one goal, which it looked like we could have shipped 2 or 3, like logistically.
Yeah.
And then I think that's maybe kind of like a strange antithesis to today's game at home to Reading, because I don't think Reading looked any great shakes, to be honest with you. Anyway, I don't know. Let's go on to talk about today.
It's just they're so of a piece. Do you know what I mean? It's a continuing saga of Monk losing his mind, and all of us as Wednesday fans being put through the ringer by it. So today's match, there was more chopping and changing. I suppose the headline news is that Barry Bannon was dropped to the bench. Something some people have been calling for. I'm of the opinion that we should probably just always be playing Bannon, because even a slightly poor Bannon is pretty good compared to most other players. But he's not been without his critics, and I'm not so myopic as to say that he's not made mistakes and been part of the problem in recent games. So try something new. Unfortunately, that something new was a combination of Kieran Lee and Joey Pelupessy in the middle, which the clamour from the stands has been, almost non-existent for such a combination. And lucky old Urigide brought in from the cold to play right back amidst this madness. And as was Harris, who's been out of teams more often than he's been in recently. And Liam Palmer was captain. So a lot of interesting bits and pieces to pick through. What did you make, when you saw the team for the first time?
I thought it was brave, but at this point, it's just becoming how many countless, repetitions and rolls of the dice can there be? I feel like we're, I think about Calgary Institution as a burger place called Peter's Drive-In, which the burgers and fries are terrible, I will say, but you can go effectively for a decent milkshake every time. And basically they say about how many combinations there are, because you can mix and match the different kind of flavor shots they put in there. And I just think we're trying something new every time in the vain, desperate, attempt and clutching at straws that something's going to work. So it just felt like another roll of the dice for me in that respect. I don't see what the plan is. It doesn't translate on the pitch, whether there is a plan. I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. We're not even looking to, I don't even think we're looking to counter the opposition every week. I'm beginning to wonder what the purpose of this Ryan Needs gentleman who Gary Monk's brought in to, analyse the opposition.
Yeah, it's so strange to go from feeling that there was such a kind of guiding hand over, planning performances and the way we were going to work to beat teams, to these last 3 games have just felt like speculative punts in terms of who's played where, what the instructions have been. I mean, the Luton game in particular was wild because you could just see players talking to each other all the time with the air of, what on earth am I supposed to be doing? Are you supposed to be here? Is that your man? Is that my man? It just felt like they'd kind of come up with it on the back of a fag packet 5 minutes before kickoff. It was that shoddy. I think today, as you say, it's bold. They're coming up with, just to kind of use another cereal analogy, in your now adopted homeland of Canada, the makers of Golden Grahams came out with a new shape, which was they now have diamond shaped Golden Grahams, and it's just the same Golden Graham but tipped to a different angle, and apparently it did increase sales for a period of time. It was quite a successful advertising trick. But with this squad of players, I mean, essentially that's what we're doing. We're pivoting Joey Pelupessy to a slightly further forward position and trying to tell everyone he's a diamond. It's not working, and everyone can tell it's still Joey Pelupessy.
But I just think I guess my kind of just thoughts, I'll just kind of go through personnel wise.
Sure.
Glad to see Lee's on the bench. I was surprised to see that we benched Wickham. I didn't know whether that was because I felt like it looked like we were just going to play him every game. I wondered whether we just had whether there was a clause in the loan agreement. Yeah. And I'm surprised that we're still sticking with both Fernando Forestieri and De Cruz, essentially.
I think De Cruz has been the standout sort of best prospect from the new guys since. Sure. I thought he was probably our best player against Barnsley, more or less. And I thought he just seems to get his head down and work pretty hard. He's fairly...
Yeah. I didn't know why away at Luton midweek we decided that basically Forestieri went off at half-time. I was kind of surprised by that decision. I'll be honest. I think
there's fitness issues, though, isn't there? I think that's the other thing with Wickham. He's not played very much football, so how many sort of 3-game weeks is he going to be able to turn up every game for?
Yeah.
Whereas De Cruz, I think, has been playing games, and I do think it shows. He's match sharp and seems to have 90 minutes in him, at the drop of a hat, which is a nice thing to get from a lone player. You don't always have it. I don't know where Windass is at in terms of how many games he was getting for Wigan, but I think at the time he'd fallen out with the manager, hadn't he? So the chances are he probably wasn't playing very often.
Frozen out in that respect, yeah.
And Forestieri, obviously, we know, has barely played any football for about a year.
I don't know. I was glad to see Harris back. I was glad to see Irahide, not gone into the wilderness. Yes. I'm still wondering now what happened to Adebayo after being in the wilderness, coming back, doing seemingly all right.
Yeah.
And a left-back berth, which is kind of against his thing, and then just being kind of discarded with. And, no news. The interesting thing I want to say from this week, in terms of breaking hoo-hoos, I don't know if we want to kind of backtrack a little bit here, Rich. There was something I remembered that we could kind of bring up.
Let's cover it. This is good. It's fine. Let's just cover it now. It's fine.
There wasn't any press conferences this week. There weren't any press conferences this week.
Right.
Like, there wasn't one before the Luton game. There wasn't one before this game. I don't know. I haven't heard any news about that. No one seems to talk about it on the message boards. Or I didn't hear anything from Dom Howson on Twitter about that. It just seemed incredibly strange. I also wondered as well, there was a bit of a mini fury at the beginning of this week, because basically I'm often curious what it works with. You got the pre-match interviews, you've got the post-match interviews. Is there any other press midweek? Because essentially at the beginning of this week, it came out that there were comments from Gary Monk, which I don't think were from the post-match at Barnsley, to say that basically we shouldn't be looking to, it's false for us to think that we have playoff aspirations within the squad. And I don't know where this comment came from. So I don't know if, consistently members of the press are on the phone, to chat to managers and players midweek it's out of the press times, or whether there's actually stuff that actually did come up at the post-match, which they put to one side to kind of, spindle out a mini story on. I don't know where it came from, and it's really confusing me. And I really hoped that prior to this, that maybe Gary Monk was doing this kind of opportunity to kind of take some of the heat and the pressure off the players.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, like it angered a lot of people, because still, this is an an incredibly expensive bit of bread and circus for a lot of fans.
Yeah, especially when when it's season ticket deadline, no, or the early bird season ticket deadline, it was peculiar timing for those comments to come out. But you're sort of wondering whether it was an attempt at a Mourinho,
shield, and he seemed to have kind of retracted into basically saying, "Put the blame on me."
Yeah.
So I feel recently, in terms of, even though I say, look, this isn't good enough, he's not explicitly called anyone out, which I'm happy with, but a lot of it's gone back to him, but I haven't seen any change. I haven't seen the players repaying any of the faith he's put in them, or any gratitude from a state of execution to not drag their names across the press.
Yeah, well, that's the sort of strange thing. We had this big, tear down post Blackburn defeat. We didn't see a response against Millwall. There's clearly now players who are, persona non grata. They've dropped out of the possible pool to pick. So he's kind of created an us and them, but it does increasingly feel like there's not many folks on the them side, with standing with Gary Monk willing to fight for him, because we're not seeing fighting performances. But then I don't think Monk is helping himself. The way that we have set up to play these last 3 games has not helped anybody. So I just don't know, because I don't think so. To take today's game, and this seems a strange thing to say, but it might be the best we've played since the Leeds game.
Yeah, well,
I think players are trying, and even with 10 men, they were really trying pretty hard, and potentially you could argue that Murphy once again kind of had one of his best games for us in this odd cameo as a right wing back. He looked really frightening and dangerous and was whipping balls in. So it's not sort of lack of endeavour, but then the way that we're setting up to play, we're kind of lost before we start, because how was that midfield ever going to work? Because what happened was Joey Pelupessy ran around a bit and Kieran Lee did the square root of absolutely nothing. And then we brought Bannon on, which was obviously going to happen.
This is the thing to kind of concede and kind of go back again. So you make a brave decision in basically saying bench Bannon, we're not playing Bannon. But then you make the ultimate concession that it's not working without him.
Yeah.
Like I'd rather it stood by his conviction and just leave Bannon off it and try and make it work. Because I think we do need a plan B without Bannon. Even though the plan A, well, mainly because the plan A with Bannon hasn't been working recently. But
I don't. Is that Bannon's fault? Have we been playing badly because of Bannon? I don't think Bannon's trying any less hard. In fact, weirdly, Bannon is one of these players, when we are playing, the worse we are playing, generally, the more Bannon is trying to do, because he's desperate to get the ball and have an effect on things. So you could sort of argue, taking him out is a way to kind of just save him from himself. But this too with Pelupessy is awful. And it's been a mainstay now. It's not worked once, and it's become our kind of go-to two in the middle.
I don't know why we're still persisting with Pelupessy, though.
Well, but who else?
Well, this is the problem. No one else is... Hutchinson's apparently no longer a thing. Luongo's... Who knows when Luongo's going to be back. It feels like he's talked about in a mentality of, it's game to game, but it doesn't look that way. I mean, a similar thing with Morgan Fox. Where is Morgan Fox? I thought he was close last week.
Fox nearly made it for today's game, but we'll see. That will help a lot. Having Fox back will help a lot, but the thing is, most people would say Bannon works better in a 3, and most of our best performances have generally been a 3 in midfield. Whether it's because we feel the need to play these players, whether it's desperation, whether it's whatever, the need for a change, what we are doing is playing far more attacking players and giving up the middle of the pitch, because there's no way Pelupessy and Bannon can compete. Both of them having their best games will still never be able to compete with most teams playing 4 or 5 players in the middle. They're always going to get swamped. Bannon's always going to struggle to find room. It's a fait accompli. So I just don't know what we're expecting to happen. We're expecting some weird miracle to happen, But we keep this is the same mistake 3 times.
I know, but I feel the thing that kind of worries me is I think basically it feels like the management and the playing staff are basically kind of doing the same thing that we're doing in the stands. I made a note that, because it's just been so dull and boring and we've forgotten to score goals. I mean, that's kind of like your building block of entertainment for football is scoring goals. Really. I'm not, it's nice, but I'm not spaffing myself when we keep a clean sheet, Rich.
No.
It's about scoring goals. I thought, you win by scoring more goals. How are we going to do that? I've made a note basically saying that, like you, I think I'm just hoping right now during this awful, barren spell of absolute Drek. I'm hoping for some strange respite from this mediocrity. And I'm wondering in this winter whether maybe Jordan Rhodes can do another Groundhog Day-like appearance, raise his wee little head from his hovel, blink a few times before somersaulting out to crack in a perfect hat-trick. And then he will, like King Arthur, sleep beneath the earth like a hibernating sloth until Wednesday need him once more, which is every week. But I just want some entertainment. I want a break from this. I was hoping really for a win today. If it went in off someone's backside, that whole kind of platitude. But I just wanted a reminder of that. Can this team score goals? And we don't look anywhere near doing that any game, and nothing looks to change.
This is where I'm talking about where with Monk, I am starting to lose any hope that he's going to be the guy to turn it round.
Exactly.
Whether it's a combination of, factors beyond his control. So we talked in previous weeks how we've got a big chunk of this squad who their contracts are up at the end of the season, and if some of them have had intimations or been told that they're not going to get a new contract, well, maybe they've downed tools already. Maybe they're not putting in the effort that you want.
Yeah.
But it's such a significant part of the squad that we have to keep playing some of those players. So that's one factor that might be at play and nothing to do with Monk. We've also had these sort of fallings out with senior pros. How many people are in that group we don't know, but it seems fairly clear that Sam Hutchinson is one of those. It seems obvious that Kieran Westwood is one of those. It may well be that Rhodes is one of those because he's not been in a squad since the Blackburn teardown post-match press conference.
Sure.
So but that's, you're stacking. So if you're adding the players that he's fallen out with to the players that maybe can't be bothered anymore, you're probably talking about 2/3 of the squad. There's not that many players that are on.
Well, that's it. I mean, we talked about, and I do want to revisit this. So just to kind of break kayfabe and lift back the curtain to let the listeners at home kind of look into kind of our work in process. Rich has proposed a piece which is basically goodies and baddies. But the thing I kind of want to say about that, Rich, is I agree with it. I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting to kind of hypothesize. But who is a goodie?
Oh, I know. Well, I would have said Bannon. It's clearly one of his boys. I think Iorfa is one of his boys. Palmer. We know Morgan Fox is. He's vociferously said
Fox Morgan is very much one of his boys.
Yeah, how wonderful Fox is. Beyond that, it's a bit hard to tell.
It's a bit of we definitely know, for Gary Monk, we definitely know who Leo DiCaprio is, but I don't know who Leo DiCaprio's group of Playboy Playboy bunches. So I don't know who these people are. I don't know who these mysterious reservoir dogs like, good boys, goodies we have in the squad. Because no one's covering themselves with any modicum of glory, or anyone doesn't really ever show any great mentality that makes me think that these are people that you want constantly in the team.
Yeah. So to go back to your point about entertainment, laughably, you're right. I mean, as fans, we want entertainment. We obviously want to win games of football. If we're winning games of football, I think most fans will sacrifice some level of the entertainment for a kind of functional team that is picking up results. And I think at best, during Monk's tenure, that's where we've been. You know, the best days weren't wonderful football matches by and large, but it was more often than not just being that little bit better than the opposition and riding it out till the end of the game. We'll put up with that. It's absolutely fine. But I think what's so hard about this is it just doesn't. You know, there was so much talk about building the blocks. Oh, I sort out the defense first, and then I talk more about attacking. And it was even in numbers of weeks. It was talked about when he first came in. You know, oh, we've had more time to work on shape and things, and we certainly used to hold a great shape. It just seems to have all fallen apart, and I don't know whether that is Monk is losing things in terms of, you know, losing the dressing room, losing the support of the players, and therefore not getting the performances he needs. Or I just can't figure out what the hope is, what the plan is. As you said, there's been nothing really to build on from these three games. You know, Harris had a cameo, did okay, so Harris gets a start. He didn't do anything wrong today, but he didn't exactly shine. Does Harris get to keep his place? Urigide obviously got sent off, so that means that we're looking for another solution at right back. Does that mean we go back to Iorfa and Lees, even though that you know, Iorfa, Lees, Borna, even though that's not worked? It's just it would sort of feel okay if we were. Today would have been fine, and the Millwall result in and of itself a couple of weeks ago is fine as a building block. You know, a 0-0 at home, but we kind of get our pride back. There's a bit of identity to the way we play, and we can take that into the next game. I can get along with the sense of that. I can think long term enough to look past each individual game as long as there's a wider picture. But the wider picture just doesn't seem to be anywhere at this point in time. That's what's hard to... I think that's what's making people especially frustrated. I mean, the performances are dire at the moment. Although today, weirdly, as we touched on, in some ways, a better game. So when we talk about that being a better game for us, what for you were the things that sort of looked a bit brighter and a bit better today?
This seemed a bit more. We started with a real tempo, or like for a Gary Monk Sheffield Wednesday first half performance. This was a real barnstormer in terms of in that kind of context. We looked like we actually wanted to kind of go out and kind of move the ball around and and have a bit of pep in our step. It still wasn't. It wouldn't make a DVD that you'd put in the club shop. But
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in that club shop. Put it next to Dave Jones's autobiography. Actually, they could both have the same title. No smoke, no fire.
I was just thinking how I could work that one in as well, I'll be honest. So, yeah, no, it was a good pace and tempo. Like I said, it wasn't scintillating. I think that's the thing that just made it all the more... Like, it still felt like it had a lot of that shape, though. Like, I think there's a fair amount of shape today. And the thing that was just heartbreaking was that, you know, the 21-minute mark, we conceded a goal. And it really just came out of nowhere for Reading. It was a very slick and lovely through ball. And was it Mata, who was a player who kind of, you know, was the pacey player who could kind of run onto it.
And a pretty savvy step over from Puskás as well. I think like that his sort of feint really sold the through ball and opened up the space.
But I don't know. It didn't seem... Reading seemed like a very average team full of kind of players who seem a bit more athletic than we were.
Yeah.
But again, just another kind of middling average championship side. And just heartbreaking again for the final result. And especially at that point in the game, that, you know, they're a team who are a goal better than us at that point.
Yeah.
You know, another middling collection of championship second-tier players who, you know, are getting paid fairly decent wages. And
so in terms of the incidents, their goal was really the first significant thing. But we did have a chance or two before they got their chance. The chance they took. There was Harris's lovely sort of. It sort of looked like a shot rather than a cross. He took a left-footed shot on the angle, and Cruz was was in close attendance, but not quite close enough to touch home the deflection from the goalkeeper. There was also a really lovely ball in from Palmer, but I can't recall whether that was before or after their goal.
That was after.
Yeah, but Nuhiu and Cruz were the wrong way round. You wanted the height of Nuhiu in the middle and the pace of Cruz on the far post, because it went over Cruz's head and past Nuhiu too fast for him to move. Whereas the other way round, you may well have had a header from Nuhiu and then Cruz could have gobbled up the rebound. He does look a touch gun shy for me, Cruz. That's my generally I've been quite impressed with him overall, but there was a couple of opportunities where I thought really if he'd sort of driven on, he could have probably set up a chance to shoot for himself, and he picked other options which were less successful. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on it, Luke, just so you know. I'm keeping track of whether or not Da Cruz is a bit gun shy. But for the first half, as you say, fairly bright, but not too many incidents. We didn't really have any shots to speak of other than that Harris cross shot. Anything else you sort of picked out between the first minute and half time?
No, I think this, as much as, try and have some fun doing this podcast, it was really pretty painful today. And I'm really hoping that I didn't really make much notes. There wasn't really much to write home about. It was a pretty awful, terrible game. And I'm just depressed.
Do you think Dawson should have done better with the first goal? Or do you think it was just a good finish?
I think there was so many stuff in the beginning stuff that kind of took everything out of it. But I am curious, actually, what did you think he should have done better? Because I was wondering about that, but it's not been something I've gone back and seen it like numerous times.
I just think he's a little bit slow to react, and he seems to be too slow to get down to it, really. But it was a good, smart finish. It was a really good run from Miete, or however you pronounce his name.
Yes.
What an absolute unit, by the way. Flipping heck. For a winger, he is a monster. But he ghosted in. He ran between Burner and Palmer and had the reign of the box when that through ball came through. So Burner, I think, is another one of these players who, if we had an alternative, I'd want to give Burner a rest for a week or two. But you could kind of do that all over the pitch, unfortunately. I don't think the alternative is Lees and Iorfa, but I don't know. He just seems to be in the wrong place a lot of times, and he's making some significant errors. It's between him and Iorfa, who was at fault for that Luton goal, but I don't think he should be playing that ball back in that situation either way. Right, so then in terms of... So at half-time, we took off Joey Pelupessy and played Bannon. So the big statement of dropping Barry Bannon lasted until the first realistic opportunity to put Barry back on. How did you think the kind of three up top worked? Harris sort of generally stuck to his lane and played on the left, but
I don't know, because I'm looking at this again, and the problem we had was, in similar fashion to the Blackburn game, suddenly we also went down to 10 players as well. So I kind of want to say that I don't think I can call how the formation worked, because
it all changed.
Azazi going off.
So that happened pretty early on in the second half. There's no real qualms. The referee had an odd game. Was thoroughly booed off, but he can't. There's nothing in the rules that sort of makes allowances for the fact that someone is young. So his first yellow card is clear as day. He held down. He's down on the ground, and he held back the player that had left him down on the ground to stop him progressing. So it's a yellow card. It's a cynical professional foul. The second one was a horrible tackle. Not quite worthy of a red on its own, but some refs I've seen refs give red cards for tackles that kind of egregious, because he was just angry that he'd been beaten and went through the player. He stayed on his feet, so it wasn't like a kind of 2-footed lunge or anything, but he certainly hacked him down with intent, and sometimes that can get you in trouble on its own. But from his point of view, it's just naivety, isn't it? He shouldn't be making that tackle when he's already on a yellow. He opens up the opportunity for the ref to make a big decision, and he ended up getting sent off. And
then he also
that's kind of the game gone, isn't it? So
yeah, well, that's the point. It's just it's just similar to the well, that was the last time we saw Luongo, wasn't it? Because Luongo was sent off, and then that was rescinded. But then by that point, Luongo was injured. But a similar mentality to that Blackburn game is what can you really honestly do in terms of formation with kind of 10 players? And I mean, I thought it was interesting. I wondered whether we were just going to at that point, just kind of look to kind of restore the 4 at the back by taking someone off, and then.
Yeah, interestingly, we did sort of rush right back, didn't we, for about 5 minutes? Whoever was closest was right back. So Cruz was right back for a little while. Kieran Lee dropped in there. I think Barry Bannon even played there for a little while. It was it was really quite strange to see. We certainly sent Tom Lees off to warm up. He was warming up pretty hard. But the decision was then made to bring on Jacob Murphy instead. So Da Cruz came off, Murphy came on, and effectively kind of played right wing back. Consistently stayed out there and did a job.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just having a lot of occasions where, I mean, even during the best of times when we have 11 players on the pitch and it's a standard, I can't really work out a lot of the time who's playing where. I'll be honest with you, just to kind of be crass with this one, Rich.
Yeah.
So I didn't really. I don't know. Is it, if it's kind of effective, then who really cares if the fan in the crowd really knows what's going on? But I don't see right now. I don't have any great faith that the players have a great idea of who's playing well. To be honest with you,
actually, for what it's worth, I was really pleasantly surprised at how well Murphy did at right wing back. He put in a couple of real crunching tackles. I think Ajara had a much harder time against Murphy than he had against Urugide. And Murphy was getting forward. He seemed to beat his fullback with real ease a couple of times. Played some cracking balls in. There was one that produced a chance for Wickham. I don't know whether he should have done better with it or not. It was well blocked. I mean, obviously, we were playing against Man Mountain, formerly of this parish, Michael Morrison, the hard man himself. So, tough route for those strikers today. I thought I was weirdly surprised how he did, and we oddly had kind of our brightest bit of the game immediately after that sending off. That's when we made a couple of chances. We then switched Ati Nuyu for Connor Wickham, and speaks volumes, I think, of where Connor Wickham is in terms of his fitness. I think we lost our platform to play for the pitch when Wickham came on. Ati, I don't think he had a brilliant game. I don't think it was one of his better games. He looked particularly sort of ponderous and slow at times, but he does buy us kind of 20 yards into their half as a kind of base camp to build play from. And we lost that when he came on. And Wickham was coming very, very deep, sometimes into our own half to try and get the ball, which I appreciate. It's something that Wayne Rooney did. It's showing desire in a way, but it doesn't help us get forward because there's no out ball, particularly when we've only got 10 men. And just from that point on, really just seemed to invite pressure on ourselves. And we were just, they picked up their second goal. That was game over really from that point on.
What did you think about the second Reading goal, which was probably, I don't know, was it the most heartbreaking all of them? I don't know. It was pretty close.
It's a rubbish goal, so I'm just watching it back to remind myself.
I actually had that one kind of etched in my memory. It was a pretty poor kind of defending, and through to just the last touch or lack of touch from, Dawson was pretty horrific.
Just watched it bobble over his right foot, Dawson. Awful.
Well, he got a hand to it, didn't he? Wasn't it a hand, and then it just kind of it just slipped off his palm, pretty much.
I'm gonna verify. I've got my not my Roger Stone. Got my Oliver Stone. I've got my angles. Yeah, I think you might be right. I think it maybe touched his glove, but it's pathetic. It's pathetic goalkeeping.
It really is.
You are not
really
good enough to let it wander by. Cover it. Get your body over it. Get some hands on it. Stop it going in. You useless numpty. Sorry. When you see keepers that do like the big arms when it's going past and stuff, and it's like, yeah, maybe just be there. What if it curls in? Just be there.
Yeah.
Nobody's giving you prizes for style. I mean, he just watched it go in. It's dreadful, dreadful goalkeeping. It's bad defending. It's lucky. But that is one where, as a goalkeeper, you've got it in your power to turn that round just by being a basic goalkeeper. Stop, just putting your hand on it. There's no need to do a big show and watch it go by the post, because the chances are something like that will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really, really frustrating nonsense, that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Lack of pressure following up the clearance, and it reminded me a little bit. Do you remember one of Alex Lopez's very few goals? I think he scored towards the end of like a 4-2 game, and it was a short corner routine that kind of didn't work very well. It was 2 or 3 passes, and they were all a bit harried and rubbish. And the ball was played to him in not very much space, but he just kind of poked it through, and just the fact that he got it through the crowd of players was enough. There wasn't even a crowd of players. Anyway, that was closely followed by Dawson having one of his better moments. He did make a very good save. There's this bizarre incident where Palmer passed it across the front of his own penalty box blind to their number 14 or number 17, putting him one-on-one Dawson. And Dawson did get down well, got a foot to it, David De Gea-esque save, his outstretched base of his foot. So that was a good moment for him. He did well, bailed out the captain. It was Ajara that had that chance. So, and then another defensive calamity. Iorfa looked to control a very easy ball into the box. Kick his first touch to control it took it about 7 or 8 feet away from him, which meant that his second touch was a tackle, and it was a bad tackle. He went through the clever Reading player and gave away a utterly needless penalty, which was slotted away by Sam Baldock. All round, just as you say, in some respects, you go down to 10 men. It's a hiding to nothing. The best you can hope for is clinging on, and we didn't have anything to cling on to. So to an extent, you can go, that's the sliding doors moment in this match, and everything after it doesn't count. But
and then future like. Much like the star of sliding doors, Gwyneth Paltrow, do you think we'll put out a candle that smells like this game in the future?
I sincerely hope so. That shelf next to the highlights from this game and Luton attacking wise, Dave Jones's biography. In fact, I think if we made it a reed diffuser rather than a candle, we could call the whole shelf "No Smoke, No Fire."
Excellent. I'm really looking forward to that. I think we can. I think that's the real alchemy that we can get out of this. This poor performance. This is what we get from this.
No smoke, no fire corner. Oh dear. So, is this the sort of game where it's not really worth doing player ratings, or?
So I was thinking about this when we were doing it, because I wasn't really taking much notes. I was trying to kind of take in and kind of look and to see any kind of great positives or any great entertainment, and it was really just bereft of all of those. There was really it's really been like a kind of potato famine of a game, I kind of want to say. It's really just nothing in the fields, and this is really severely causing great loss and loss of life across the nation. It's pretty poor all around. So I was wondering in terms of that, because everyone was seemingly kind of poor. Initially, I just kind of wanted to give everyone a 6 out of 10. I'm wondering if everyone's like a 5 in this game.
Yeah. Yeah,
and maybe
probably.
I'm going to give Dawson a 4 just to make a point again. I don't understand why this player has been crowned, has been named kind of the crown jewels of the football club and given like a longer contract than anyone else here.
That 4-year deal has it's soured in my mouth, Luke. It is soured in my mouth.
And I don't really kind of understand. I don't understand if does anybody naturally think he's a really good goalkeeper? Because I'm beginning to. I don't really know. I don't see anything.
But he's with us now until he's 28 years old.
Yeah, but I don't understand. Like, interestingly enough, we've been on the radio show, the Love Sport radio show, and the host is a guy called Matt Beadle, who I think has said in one of his recent ones that kind of decreed him to be a good goalkeeper. But I don't understand what people are seeing. I don't understand why we're still persisting with him. Oh, because Westwood's terrible and Westwood's done this. But I'm generally wondering, like I was saying in a previous podcast, it's the Paul Heffernan effect. Can we start Joe Wildsmith? It can't be that much worse. Surely
we are surely getting to the point where we have to give it a try, and maybe the sort of all game. By the way, they were promoting the Man City Cup tie with a kind, a suggested air of, if you like seeing us get humped by Reading, wait till you see us play the champions of England. Sign up and pay £25 to just have them slap it up us for 94 minutes of your finest batterings. That might be the chance to give Wildsmith a little window, a little crack in the door and an opportunity to seize. I do think, as we sort of touched on, all over the pitch, we are playing. It's full of players who we'd like to play somebody else, but there's not really somebody else. And Dawson is in that favoured position at this point because if Westwood was doing better than Dawson and Dawson was doing better than Wildsmith when they were all competing earlier in the season, how bad must Wildsmith be? That's the only question.
I don't know, but this is the problem we're getting to, and I think, I hate saying this, but right now I don't feel like I have any faith in Gary Monk to make that decision.
No.
So why not? Why not just play? I feel hilariously we're becoming it's so bad right now. I feel like this is all becoming like inverse Jos Lukai, which basically
the parallels are coming thick and fast.
I just wonder, we may as well just play some kids. Like, I'm going to be honest. Like, I don't have any faith in any of the professional established football players to do anything of any merit. So, sorry, but I'm just thinking, I just feel like reminding of those times under Jos Lukai where, we found out the kids were moderately okay.
The flip side to that argument is that this is, the atmosphere at Hillsborough is poisonous. This is not a good time to be a young player, blooding youngsters, because everything is dreadful. The mood has turned very sour. It's not a great time to shove a young player in and kind of say, make the best of it, Sonny Jim. But but I do think if Westwood is gone, banished, and I think he was dropped for footballing reasons. There seems to be people seem to have forgotten just how bad Westwood was before he lost his shirt to Dawson. People seem to be equating that with the personality issues that have now come up. For me, they are two distinct things. Westwood was more than bad enough to have lost his shirt on merit. He was making clangers every game. The problem now is Dawson has joined him. Dawson is making those exact same game-costing errors every single match. Yes. So we either put Westwood back in, or we turn to Wildsmith. We need to We need a shake-up again there, I think. One thing I will say though, there's a domino effect of forsaking the midfield. Now, Monk likes even the good games. We have had times where we have rolled the dice on that midfield. So we go under strength in midfield. We know we'll be outnumbered, but the game we've played and when things were successful, the game we were winning was we will outnumber them on the flanks and we'll make chances, and our defence will hold up.
Mm.
We are continuing to play that gamble with a significantly worse midfield. The moment you take, we've gone back and forth with Hutchinson, but the moment you take Hutchinson out in a 2, you lose an awful lot. Every other player other than Luongo, you're starting lesser than you would be with Hutchinson in that position. So we're playing a 2 that's not a particularly good 2. They are getting completely swamped and overwhelmed. That means that the defence is exposed. They're making loads more mistakes than they were making. Remember, this was a team that was picking up clean sheets pretty regularly until fairly recently. But when the midfield goes, the defence is exposed. It's wide open. And when the defence are making mistakes, the goalkeeper's got loads to do. So Dawson is in a position where he might make 2 or 3 really good saves, but the opposition are going to have another 2 or 3 chances on top of that, where just in terms of odds, they are going to pick up goals. He's going to make more mistakes because he's been asked to do more. It's all... So individual players are making headaches and problems for themselves. But I would argue at this point in time, Monk as the manager is making headaches for everybody, because these last 3 teams were never, ever going to win the matches. It would have been a complete fluke if they'd won. And in some ways, it would have actually been worse for us in the long run if any of these 3 nonsense teams that he'd put out had worked. Because that would have been, oh, well, it worked once, we'll keep doing it. The benefit of this is they've all been howling failures, and he needs to come up with something that actually is sensible and works.
Mm-hmm.
Or he has to go. That's the position we're in.
Yeah.
It's another bleak one, guys. But that's where we're at. We've got Birmingham on the 22nd, so we've got a week to prepare for Birmingham away. Monk will want to put in a good show. Those are his former employers. He's got there's bad blood with his with their current manager, his former assistant. I'm hoping he can pull something out, because it's getting desperate times. It really is.
Yeah.
Have I completely depressed you into
I'm depressed enough as it is, Rich. I don't think there's anything that's going to kind of lift me or kind of make me say anything that's remotely or markedly positive. It's a bad period. But I don't know. I don't think we're actually working that hard to get out of this.
No.
I don't think we're working hard at I think it's just needless, endless industry without any great direction. That's what I feel like.
Yeah,
I don't think we're
without
working.
guile.
Yes, exactly. It's just needless, basically. It's not, energy spent in the right direction.
Lovely. Have you seen any good films recently, Luke?
No, but I wanted to try and make some, because I was thinking we haven't got I don't know if we've really had like a nice little fun little title for this episode. So I've just been thinking recently just how much regarding Wednesday that I love the word Drek. Drek is a great word. Drek is such a fantastic word to kind of explain what's going on. And maybe in this kind of mentality, we could look at the Shrek franchise. So maybe this is Drek the Turd.
Very good. Oh, well, there we go. Onwards and upwards. Things can only get better, surely.
Maybe like the recent Oscar winner, there is a parasite in the squad. Maybe that's what's kind of causing the...
As I say, I do think there's some structural things that Gary Monk could really help with. This is some of these are not rocket science. Some of these are not to do with talent or graft or any of that. Some of these things are self-inflicted. And I just think the more emphasis you put on attack with that front four, the more exposed your fullbacks, your defenders are going to be. This is basic stuff. If Forestieri is playing on the wing, his fullback will have to work harder because Forestieri will not play on that wing. He will not defend very much. I know Forestieri does tackle. He doesn't defend. They're slightly different things. It's all about positioning. So he's not. There's no shielding. There's no help for your man. De Cruz similarly kind of works hard going backwards, but he doesn't help his defender. It's so you've got these are choices that are being made when you play a player that does not stick to his guns defensively up front. There's knock-on effects. We're just not seeing any of the positives of it. We're supposed to be bowled over by... The opposition is supposed to be bowled over by all of our attacking merit. It's not happening. So that's where it's all falling down. But in the failure of that, we could get the basics right, and then maybe be like back to sort of eking out games 1-0, which feel like the sunlit uplands, the glory days of 2019.
I guess the interesting thing I think about is the fact that like we talk a lot. It talks a lot about football because it's a working class sport, and it's the bread and circus of the kind of English everyman and every men around the world. Basically, we talk about, and the people who watch it have pastimes and they have jobs, and then you kind of talk about how people kind of compare it to their workplace, which maybe is a bit of an anomaly. But the thing I want to kind of say in that aspect is how often do people in their jobs and in their professional lives have to say that things are going so badly that they have to kind of turn around and look at things and say, let's get back to the basics. Let's remind ourselves how we do this in the first place.
Well, it tends to only happen after huge mistakes or things crumbling down, and huge mistakes are happening every game, every game on Wednesday. So, yeah, I think there's things we can do to help ourselves. I think there's certainly room to fix things. I need Monk to now convince me that he's the guy to do it and convince me fast, because at the moment I am rapidly, more than anything else, I am rapidly losing faith in Gary Monk.
Sure. And then, but I mean, a similar mentality as well. I would have thought from what we were kind of sold, when we pick up the Gary Monk brand of cornflakes from the shelf. What it should say it does on the box, and what the branding and what the advertisements kind of told us, is that Gary Monk is the person who kind of gets you out of these kind of situations, not the person who puts you in these situations, which it seems like that's what has happened right now.
Well, presumably he's never really had this before.
Which surprises me.
I know. I know. It seems so inevitable. Well, yeah. Well, in absence of your film recommendation, I would say that folks should go see Jojo Rabbit, if that's still in cinemas after the
Jojo Rabbit is an absolutely fantastic film.
It's a real
a film I saw last year here in Canada, and I just absolutely adored it, and I found it very affecting. I was a little bit upset that Scarlett Johansson didn't win the Best Supporting Actress for Jojo Rabbit at the Oscars, because I thought she was incredible in that film. It's
a truly brilliant movie. I think it weirdly got kind of so reviews, but I think it's because Americans don't have that thing of laughing at the Nazis in a way that we had. Second World War,
yes,
Brits kind of, a lot of that kind of Blitz spirit was kind of silly jokes about, like, Hitler having one ball and things like that. I don't think Americans really entered into that, that kind of, gallows humor that got us through. But it's that sort of slightly childish take on the Nazis is the light side of a very well constructed film. So there you go. When you can't find joy in Sheffield Wednesday Football Club, take yourself to Nazi Germany and see how you go.
I think it's a good segue into the fact we talk about this Gary Monk totalitarian state. We're making fun and having delight in a very negative, very sour time. So a fitting film for all Wednesdayites right now, I should say.
And I think we should wrap things up.
Let's do it.
Have you got? Well, I'll say cheerio then, Luke, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
You too, man.
I mean, I expect your week will be a certain level of quality until about 3:00 on Saturday, and then we'll probably take a nosedive. But we live in hope. It might be that's when things get sunny again, the snow will melt, and Sheffield Wednesday will eke out a 1-0 victory against Birmingham City.
And we start to ebb our way out of our winter of discontent.
That's how you get there, one ebb at a time. Cheerio, Luke.
See you, Rich.